everyone, this is Shane with Starner's Woodworking, and today I'm going to show you how I made this wooden mallet out of walnut and smoked birch. Let's get right into it. So for today's video, I'm going to be using some scrap wood that I have left over for some previous projects, and this will actually be the perfect amount for what I need for this mallet. So here I'm just surfacing and getting all my pieces milled down, just trying to get them flat, not really to a certain thickness. For this spalted piece of lumber here, I'm trying to get the most figure out of the board. So as you can see, the spot right there with all the black stripes going through that is the piece that I'm looking for. I'm going to be using the spalted birch for the outside two pieces, and I'm going to make the handle out of walnut as well as the middle pieces. Here I'm just drawing some rough measurements of the handle and the two outside pieces, and then I am taking this over to the bandsaw. And I apologize for the shakiness in this video, but this is the best footage that I got of this part, so just bear with me here. So once I get all my parts cut out on the bandsaw, I'm going to mix up some 5-minute epoxy and use some brad nails to make sure I have all my pieces in place, and it will definitely speed up the drying process. Once I get the head of the mallet into the clamps and set that off to the side to dry, I'm going to be moving on to the handle next. So for this handle sanding setup here, it's definitely not the safest, but what I did was use a squeeze clamp to clamp my belt sander down to my table here, and I'm just making do with what I have here. So I definitely wouldn't recommend doing this, but this is all I had to use, and it did the trick for me. So after I have it all sanded and smooth, I'm heading over to the router table and throwing a pretty aggressive 45-degree chamfer on there. So now that I have the head of the mallet out of the clamps, I'm going to get it squared up and sanded, throw a 45-degree chamfer on it, just like I did for the handle. So after I have the head sanded up and square, I actually realized that there was a little crack in there. So what I did was mix up some glue and some sawdust for my belt sander to try to just match the walnut there a little bit. And basically what I did is took a old match and filled in that little crack there and let that dry. So once I have this part all finished up, we're going back over to the handle again, and I'm going to be cutting out the little slices for the wedges. And later on, I actually realized that I should go the whole way down to the handle, so I ended up drilling another set of holes below that. And back over to the head of the mallet again. I'm sorry, I apologize for switching between these two parts all the time, but really, that's how I completed this project, just going back and forth. But anyways, I'm throwing another pretty aggressive 45-degree chamfer on it, and this really just completes the look of the handle. Then I'm going back and doing some rough sanding, trying to take that extra glue off there, and as you can see, I'm just using the chisel to get most of that off and doing some sanding there. So once I'm done with that, I'm going to be taking just an old block of scrap wood and a piece of old sandpaper and just trying to get those edges nice and smooth there again. Once I have everything sanded pretty good through the grits, I'm making sure to dry fit this here, and this is very important just to make sure everything fits how I want it. Then I'm going back and applying some glue and doing my best to kind of spread it out there. And oddly enough, when I went to assemble it, the glue must have added some extra space and I couldn't get it to fit in the whole way through. So I ended up breaking it, and as you can see, that's why the clamps are back on there. But after that, I'm driving the wedges back through, letting that dry, then going back on the bandsaw and trimming the top part off. Then I'm heating up my branding iron here and throwing on a brand on the back side of it. After this, I'm going to be doing some final sanding, making sure I get the top and everything nice and good and making sure there's no leftover glue anywhere on the sides, so that will not show up in the final finishing process. And for the finish, I'm actually just using a regular old mineral oil just to pop the grain, and this really does the trick, and this is where you can see the real beauty come out. After I put a good 2 or 3 layers of oil on there and set that aside to dry, everything is pretty much wrapped up here, and I'm super happy with how this one turned out for my first mallet I've ever made. And now I will let you see the final product. That's going to wrap up the video for today. Hope you guys learned something, and if you did, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. I appreciate every single one of you, and have a great rest of your day.